the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Before we start, I want to thank Brian for presiding over the last meeting when I was away. So thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
And we have a pretty full agenda tonight. So we're going to start with awards, recognitions, and celebrations from Mr. Micah.
Two great celebrations. First one is we finished our summer school program and we tried something new. I think you remember last year we did, Deke did a summer camp out at Deke Elementary School, and it was a very big success. We're going to have them come and share some things, but we opened it up to the entire district this year, and we reallocated some resources, and the kids had summer school out at Deke Elementary, and it was a huge success. We had a lot of students participate. We had teachers and different paraprofessionals and everybody pitching in. It was a great experience, and so lots of great pictures I saw, and so we'll have them come and share a little update with you on that in the future. And then the other small but also fairly significant celebration is I drove by the Little Dragons Learning Center today, and the drywall is up. So we'll have to do a board tour out there just to kind of see. You can see the rooms have taken shape now. You can see where the bathrooms are going to be, the kitchen, and that's a neat thing to see progressing pretty rapidly here. So they're moving forward quickly, and so two pretty exciting things that are going on this summer, and on top of everything else.
Good, thank you.
They need to.
They do.
I'll say it, that's getting close.
They're coming no matter what.
Okay, with regard to the consent agenda, we have the need to update our agenda.
Yeah, we have to add, after the consent agenda, before the superintendent's report, we need to add a board action item, and we need to have a discussion on the board secretary vacancy. So that'll be a brief discussion followed by action item.
Okay, so with that change, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mike?
Support.
Brian? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, going on to the board action for the board secretary vacancy.
So we received in the resignations, I believe we talked to each of you, Miss Stacy Glenn has resigned from her position as the board secretary, and I'm sure that all of us would like to make some comments and do that, but she has provided Carrie with a letter that she'd like to be read tonight to explain her situation.
Okay, so I will do the best that I can here. I know Stacy is watching this evening, so I will do my best to represent her thoughts. I am writing this letter with a grateful heart and saddened heart that due to my personal life and living situation, I will no longer reside within the boundaries of Swartz Creek Community Schools. As of Thursday, August 2nd, I have officially changed my address out of the district. Due to board policy, I've resigned as Secretary of Swartz Creek Board of Education. It has been my honor to serve this position for the past 4 years. I have taken great pride and have loved being a part of this board and community. I want to thank all of the parents and residents of this community for your support and love you've shown me and given me through the 4 years I have served on this board. And to my fellow board members who have become my dear friends through this time, I will miss each and every one of you. You each hold a special part of my heart and will always be with me through my life ahead, and I look forward to our friendships continuing. I have been honored to be part of this family through my time served. We have been through good times and bad, but through it all, we have come through together and did what has been expected of us for the children of Swartz Creek Community Schools, and for that I am very proud of us all. To the Swartz Creek administration and staff, it has been my honor to be able to get to know each of you on a personal level, and I thank all of you for your support and love through these past 4 years. Mr. Micah, I am so proud that I had the opportunity to be part of hiring you as our superintendent. And as hard as it is to step down from this position, I know with all my heart that this community is in better shape and will continue to grow great lengths because of you. Mr. Heatherton, I am so proud of you and your position, and I know as I step down that with you beside Mr. Micah, the community will be a better place with both of you ahead of it. I promise to continue to pray for all of you in your positions and for the future board members to come, as well as the students of Swartz Creek Community Schools. I am proud of every student that resides at Swartz Creek, and I love you all. Thank you, Stacy Glenn. And I want to share, I want everybody to share their thoughts as well. Ryan?
Stacy, I know you're listening. We really, truly are going to miss you. You were an integral part of this board. We're going to miss your presence here, but we know you've got us in prayer, and we know you've got us in your heart. And thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you.
Mike?
You will be missed, Stacy. I enjoyed working with you. I wish you luck in your new life, and we're here. Thanks a lot.
Stacy, in your comment in there, through good times and bad, and we did have those, but I think we did come out on top, and things worked out very well here at the end. Miss your sense of humor and your little laugh, because the laugh made me laugh. Anyhow, good luck.
And Stacey, I just want to thank you for, we didn't have a long time together, but from the first day here, you welcomed me onto the board, and you've been really welcoming to my time trying to learn my role here. So I thank you for being open, honest, and caring, and we continue to have you in our prayers as well too. So all the best to you.
And I just would like to say that I appreciate your passion for the kids, and I don't think anybody could question that about your leadership and why you were here. You did it for the right reasons, and we appreciate that. I appreciate you providing me with a lot of very good and valuable insights as a board member, and I continue to trust that you'll do that, and I appreciate our relationship will continue from here. So thank you for all that you did on your service, and wish you the best.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Stacy, for all your time and service. Back to the days of Morris PTO and all the hard work you put in there. We've worked on a lot of projects together, so just amazing amount of dedication to Swartz Creek, and we thank you for that and wish you good luck.
And Stacy, I want to thank you. You know you're my friend. I am so proud of you, the way you've served. You're such a strong and independent woman, and you're such a wonderful mother for McKenna. And I know you're going to continue to do good things. Your life is long, and you could be back here someday. So I'm not going to say goodbye. I know you'll stay, my friend. You have been an amazing servant to the Swartz Creek community and to the children here. So thank you, and thank you for all of the years and your dedication. I know it was it's a lot of work to be a board member, and you did it very well, so thank you. Okay.
So, based on the need to fill the secretary's position officially at the board table.
Okay, so with the election of officers, we need to nominate folks for the position, and the person who's nominated first we will vote on until we have a consensus.
Madam President, I nominate Ken R. Engel.
Okay. Need a second?
Support.
Brian? Any comments or questions? Okay. That being said, Joanne, would you do a roll call, please? Yeah.
Brian?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Ken?
Okay. Congratulations, Ken.
Thank you.
Get your new nameplate, but you have to sit over there now.
I gotta move?
I won't lie.
You can wait.
I was the only one that liked the door seat.
That's right.
Panic ran on one over there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. We have a superintendent report. Anything else?
So yes, it's been a very busy summer. We've been in the throes of hiring teachers, and we're super excited to have several more that we get to bring to you tonight. We still have a few positions that we're looking to fill. One being a high school counselor. We have a Spanish position that's out there. A couple other positions to fill. One thing that I think we would be remiss without recognizing publicly, because this will be the last time I think we get to do so. I have had just a tremendous pleasure of being able to hire and get to know Stacy Witt. And Stacy has been a tremendous advocate for our students. She always, even through the contract negotiations and everything else, is typically somebody in her position. They're often affectionately referred to as bean counters. That is not what she is. She is an advocate for students. She understands how the system works. She's an excellent person to have work alongside, and she's a good friend. And so it's been just a pleasure to get to know her. And she has accepted the position as the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance out at Wayne Westland School District. And so we're proud to see her advance in her career. This is a great opportunity for her. But we're sad to see her go as well. So, but I just wanted to publicly thank you for all that you've done and continue to do for us. And it goes to her character. She's said she'll come over here at nights and evenings to help us get through the audit and things like that. And it's just really a great testament to the person that you are, and so we appreciate working with you and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Can we make comments?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. You have been marvelous. I won't refer to the other people that have been in that position. You've done a wonderful job. The way you communicated stuff to us, shared stuff with us, I truly hate to see you go. And I'm not just saying that. You've done a wonderful job. I mean that.
Thank you.
But never stay someplace. If you can do better, get out of here.
I wasn't ready to leave.
Well, doesn't matter. If you can further your career, make more money, go. That's what it's about.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would agree with the same thing. Trust. I think these relationships are built on trust, and boy, I got to really trust you and look forward to your presentations and what you were doing here. So yes, I agree with Ken. If you can climb that ladder, I think it's great. Maybe you'll come back. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
You can replace Ben as superintendent.
That's right. I'm out. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you.
Stacy's first meeting with the board finance committee was August 21st of last year, and it was her 4th day on the job. And I want you to know that she jumped right in from the start, and as always stressed transparency and providing the board with accurate budget information. She made my job as a board treasurer run smoother. She's always either had the answer to my questions or got them to me in a timely manner. She has implemented and strengthened internal controls, ensuring our compliance with state and federal regulations and protecting the district's tax dollars. Stacy, thanks for a job well done. You'll be missed, and good luck on your new assignment.
Stacy, I get to know you longer either, but good people always are being looked at to go somewhere else. So obviously you've done a great job here, and someone else sees that value in you. So just thank you, as Mike said, your transparency and over communicating to us, giving us all the information we needed at the time. I think it was definitely a blessing to this board. So just congratulations.
Thank you.
Stacy, I think you are my 4th business official, and you've been by far the best. So thank you. Appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you so much.
So that's kind of a downer, but on a positive note, we do have our children coming back to us very shortly, very quickly. By the time our next board meeting rolls around, we will have started school, and so this is an exciting time of year. And I just was saying this to Ken. I mean, the students are coming no matter whether we're prepared or not. And so we don't have the choice or the option. So our staff has been working very, very long hours, and we got a lot of really exciting things in store for this year. Couple quick pieces of information just as updates. We have our first day of school is the 28th. August 27th, we do have our staff professional development, which is a full day on that day. Also, the week prior, next week, we have a lot of support staff professional development. We'll be working with our student support professionals. We have a lot of training that's been going on all August, but it continues to do that. Mr. Bouchon, Mr. Heatherton have organized a lot of professional development for our staff at all different levels. We have our bus drivers who have reported, our secretaries have reported, they're all preparing their runs, their routes. Today they actually started to run their routes and get everything prepared. So it's kind of an exciting time around here. Our new Swartz Creek Virtual Learning Center is set to open. They're finishing up some components over there at the middle school building. It's in the opposite wing. Those students are going to be in a self-contained area. They're not going to have any access or ability to interact in the middle school setting itself, but they'll have food brought in for them. They'll also have the ability to go out to the cage for their PE courses. We also are implementing a totally different structure there. So we're looking at bringing in some of the homeschool population. Many of you know Eric Jones, who just won one of the Coca-Cola 400 races. He's a former graduate. Those are the types of students that we're also looking at trying to develop relationships with. We already have a few that have signed on. And then, of course, our adult education. So that's something that's exciting that's going on over there. And so things are going to be pretty rapid as we kind of move forward. The last thing I just wanted to update you on is, as it pertains to the board vacancy for Stacy's position, I wanted to pass out, these are 3 questions that we had in the last round when Mr. Jones was appointed. So I'll pass these down, and if there's other questions that you want me to ask, I can do that. But essentially what we'd like to do is tomorrow, officially, we would like to post the position. We'd like to post as a board vacancy. That vacancy would essentially finish out Stacy's term on the board, and we would need to put the posting out there and solicit people to volunteer to apply for that. So the process, similar to it was before, we will accept applications. You'll have the opportunity to review those applications. We have a board meeting on August 29th. My recommendation is that we set a special board meeting on August 30th, the day after that, to run the official interviews. So you'll be able to have access to the applications or the applicants prior to the meeting of August 29th. On August 29th, you could review those in open session and have conversation. And then on August 30th, you can interview the candidates that you select to interview. And we obviously have that process established on the actual interviews, and the people that you choose to interview would have this. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there and plant a seed. Will August 30th to schedule a special board meeting. Joanne would have to get it posted. Would that work for all of you?
It'll work for me.
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so tomorrow we will make a posting. The posting will run, and we will have those resumes after the deadline submitted to each of you, so you can review them ahead of the board meeting, and then you'll review them in open session. We'll let all the candidates know that the open interviews will be on the 30th, so that they have the ability to understand the kind of quick timeline. The interview selections will be made on the meeting of the 29th, and we'll literally be interviewing the next day on the 30th. That timeline keeps us within the 30-day window required by policy and statute to fill a vacancy before it's filled at the ISD level. So,
When do you need feedback on these questions?
if you have certain questions that you'd like me to tweak or change, I picked 3 questions. The reason I picked 3 is just for the time, depending on how many candidates you get, you know, but if there's certain things you want me to add or change on those questions, just let me know and I can do that. So if you want to get that.
Is this something you're asking them, or is this something that we're gonna ask them that evening?
This is, so what would happen is the people that you, all of the candidates would get this and they would fill it out.
Okay.
And
That's
then
fine.
they'll submit that, and you'll then be able to review it on the 29th. So if there's a certain type of question you want to be asked, then we can put that on there, and then you can have it for them. So,
all candidates be interviewed?
Will all candidates be interviewed? That would be a board decision. So not all candidates are required to be interviewed. You would be able to decide who you interviewed. Obviously, it's open application, so anybody can apply, but it would be your decision on who you decide to interview.
Okay, I only ask because I wanna know if there has to be another meeting before the 29th or 30th.
We could if you needed to. You'll have, we could take a look and see the kind of interest. We're gonna post it tomorrow.
How
So if
long
we
is the
wanted
window
to.
gonna be open?
I believe the window's open for a week and a half.
Why don't, before we carve a lot of this in stone, why don't we see who and what we get?
Okay.
And then, cause I don't know if Mike and I are thinking the same thing, but those back-to-back dates, if we do have a problem, there's really nowhere to go after that. So we might wanna throw something before that.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's not much room before that either, but what's today, today's the 16th? 15th, so the 22nd, 23rd.
I asked that because my wife thinks we're going on another trip.
That wasn't what I was thinking.
Are you thinking what he's thinking?
No.
I promised her I'd find out tonight.
I don't wanna go anywhere with my wife or his wife.
So when are your plans, Mike?
The week prior.
20th?
Yes, I would be back for the 29th. It's the week prior that.
We just can't,
Can't know until you know who applies.
well, and we can't really, that
What-
window's just
Week
like
prior,
a blip.
I'm out of the
It's
country.
7 days
I
from
can't.
So he's
tomorrow.
gone too.
I'm sorry.
We'll put the posting out there tomorrow.
Okay.
And we can, I think that we have to run it for at least 7 days,
Okay,
so,
let's see what happens.
you know.
So.
I think if we could tentatively plan on, we could add a meeting in there if we had to,
Well, neither one of them are here. He's gone too.
but we should probably tentatively plan on, or put the meeting on the schedule for the 30th. And then
Yes.
if we wanna add a meeting prior, we
Yes.
could have that
Okay.
conversation. So we'll post tomorrow and we'll post a meeting, a special board meeting for the purpose of board interviews. And then we'll take a look at the response we get and then you can
Man,
make it.
if neither one of them are here, it's kind of a waste, so forget that idea, so.
Okay.
Having 6 versus having 12 or 15 is a big
Yeah.
difference
Mhm.
in terms of
Yeah,
spots, so.
it is.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
All right, board subcommittee reports. We had academic achievement on Monday and policy.
Academic achievement. We reviewed the changes to all the handbooks, the high school, middle school, elementary, athletic, and the virtual learning center. Learning Dragon Center, there wasn't any changes to that one. So we reviewed those, they were minimal changes, and I hope everybody's reviewed them, and we've already consented.
Last year, if you recall, we did a very exhaustive, we actually had board workshop on the handbooks, and we had said at the time, we'll do that again next year, so we figured that we would do that on the odd years, so, this year was pretty mostly date changes and things like that, so next year, we'll have another workshop so that we can dive into those and see what other exhaustive changes need to be made.
Any questions? Policy committee, we reviewed, the policy, social media policy, it's, a lot of good information there. And there was, significant changes in the policy, so I would, ask that everybody really take the time to review all of that. That Varnum report was a good report also, that was in that mix. So we reviewed and discussed, and, the new updated Neola recommendations on social media. Final read is August 29th.
I'll give you a little bit more of an exhaustive, detail when I get into the Neola second read tonight, just to make sure you give you some things to think about for our next meeting.
Any questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for being there. Okay.
Building site.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Tony.
Good job, man.
Yeah.
Tony Paul.
That's
it.
Oh, yeah. That's correct, that is Tony Paul. I looked at his empty chair. It's like I was looking at Stacy. We've got some notes in here. If you went through the attachments here, summer projects update, learning, Little Dragons Learning Center. Project completion date is now September 17th. All framing is complete. Most of the electrical is run. Drywall begins this weekend. It sounds like the drywall is completed or close to it. All material for the virtual learning wing at the middle school has been ordered, and they are supposed to start cutting doors out this week. This is from August 6th, by the way. Selling 2 trucks. I'm sure that's going to come to the board. The old truck, I don't know what year it is, but it's sell the old truck. Hopefully we can get $2,000 to $3,000 out of it. This past year, from what I understand, we put in $6,300 in maintenance and updates on this rusted old truck.
Yep.
The bus auction. The reserve was $7,000. We only reached $4,500. We're just going to keep it for now.
That was based on the board conversation last time. We figured we'll hold on to it for another year, see what we have, see what we need, and we'll go from there.
Cleaning up the yards at the huts back here. A lot of pallets, a lot of wood. Each dumpster load is $250. There's been a gentleman, what we'd like to do is take photos and get a quote to remove before we do anything with it. It's, as far as I'm concerned, I drove by there, it's just trash. I don't see a value in it, but I'm just one person, so the right thing will be take pictures of it and then get a quote or quotes, and then we'll bring it back to the board, and that's the disposition of it. Any questions?
What,
Yeah, we're
they're
here.
just trash over there?
It's
There's a lot of, there were some trees that were cut down like 5 years ago. And so there's all sorts of stumps and firewood that's out there, and we just wanna make sure that we get a quote on getting it taken away. I'm sure that there's people that would take it for free.
For firewood.
But we don't want, we just wanna make sure we do it above board, so.
Right.
And it's, I'm sure we're probably in violation of the blight ordinance too.
Yeah,
What I saw over there.
Yeah.
We started our own scrapyard?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Finance Committee, met 6 August. We had discussion regarding the ongoing audit. Next meeting is 10th of September. We received and reviewed the budget status report. You have a copy of it in front of you. The check register for July through August 1st was reviewed. The general fund has a total of 67 checks. There's a typo on your report, it says 6, it should have said 67. Numbers 22-64463 to 264530. In the amount of $451,011.34 with one void. We discussed the void, it was to Frontline Technology in the amount of $4,575.99. This was for software that was not used and was returned, and we got a refund. We had discussion regarding the bond ballot. All the paperwork has been completed timely and received by the county, and it will be on the November ballot. And thanks to Stacy and her staff for their hard work on that. For no pending bids or quotes, had no public comments. We had discussion regarding the check register and bills being available the Wednesday prior to the future Monday finance meetings to allow sufficient time for review. And the next meeting is 10 September. We adjourn at 8:31.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay. Now we have informational items. Don't have any questions that were answered from the last meeting. And no other certified staff, non-certified staff that we need to address or payment of bills. Mike, you've already talked about that. Any questions on those items? All right, going on to board discussion items. Focus monitoring.
Yep, so we have, Derek is going to be doing a presentation that is required by actually the federal and state governments. And this presentation is required based on some student discipline data. I'll let him kind of dive into that, and you feel free to ask him some questions. This is called focus monitoring for significant disproportionality.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Focus monitoring, what is it? The state of Michigan and the federal government, in the effort to look at all programs and services within special education, run compliancy checks. One of the areas that we talked, there's a lot of variety within special education of the compliance monitoring. One of the areas that we look at in 2016-17 school data is an area called or IDEA and the Michigan Department of Education. So you have the federal and the MARS, Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Ed. They look at violations or items that occur and where a district falls out of compliance. So you talk about the violations, talk about any types of corrective action that the district would have to take, whether it be a student corrective action plan or a district level corrective action plan. Then the state or the federal government will then take a look at that and then say, okay, what were your action steps to correct that? And then ultimately it's going to be proof of the compliancy and verification that you've completed those steps. As Ben indicated, this is one of those things right now that I have to do from the state and the federal government is to report this publicly to the board. And so I'll get into where exactly we fell in the area of non-compliance with our significant disproportionality. So,
Okay, that's a quick question there.
Sure.
Define disability.
Student with an IEP.
Okay.
It is so 13 disability categories. One, I mean, you're talking specific learning disability, hearing impaired, visual impaired, speech and language. So anybody who would meet under the Michigan IDEA, federal, or Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Ed, meet one of those 13 eligibility categories under special education, would consider a student with a disability.
The disability handicap?
Yeah, older language would be handicapped.
Well, not they got one leg.
So that might fall under a physical impairment.
Okay.
So
it doesn't necessarily mean they have to have an IEP. That's why I'm asking why to define disability.
disability is gonna be someone with an IEP. There's another level of that, which would be protected through Office of Civil Rights. That's section 504.
So this isn't if you're just physically disabled, this is IEP.
This is anybody with an IEP.
Okay.
Yep. So, under the focus monitoring, the area that we fell under significant disproportionality was due to our data from 2016-17, that a disproportionate representation of students of a race, racial or ethnic background was over-suspended. So what we had in 2016-17 data was that our black population was significantly disproportionate suspension in comparison to all the other racial ethnic backgrounds. So, under significant disproportionality, the four areas, again, that we're looking at, sorry. So with that 16-17 school data, we have to then look at the educational environment, identification for eligibility of special ed, identification of a specific area. So we didn't, the bottom three, we didn't hit, we fell under the discipline. So to make it as simple as I can, let's just say you have 100 students. 100 students, 80 of the students are white, 20 of the students are black. Your suspension rate should be 80% of the students suspended should be white, 20% should be black. We were a little bit off on those numbers. So I'll show you in the next slide how we got to where we were. So the rubric that the state uses is it's a weighted risk. So the state and the federal government kind of came up with this, went out to districts as we submit all of our data into MSDS. You look at the type of disciplinary action, whether it be in-school suspension, 2 days to 10 days, over 10 days, or out-of-school suspension. There are a weighted factor down below. One, for 2 to 10 days, you're looking at a weighted risk factor of 1.5. And those numbers in parentheses were the number of students that we had that met that criteria. Now it's the students with IEPs. So you take a look at, in-school suspension, we had 8 students within the black population, racial, ethnic background, that were suspended 2 to 10 days. Excuse me, sorry, that's the overall population. The out-of-school suspension, 2 to 10 days, we had 41 students, and we had 9 students that were suspended more than 10 days. Now, the problem that you have is, take a look at that 41 students, that 9 students, the more critical end of that, there were as many black students as there were white students. So the problem you run into is, we have a discrepancy or significant disproportionate in our suspension, because we have an 80% white Caucasian, 20% black, but the suspension was not that ratio. So federal government comes in, state comes in and says, you're significantly disproportionate suspending students that are black, and now we have kind of a problem. So with that, there's lots of monitoring and checking taking place. I had to submit, they pull all the students that fell under that category. I submit probably about 35 to 40 pages of documentation, behavior plans, IEPs, everything I could submit to the state. The state takes a look at that. Rod and Stacy and I went to a workshop hosted by the state. We talked about eventually developing a coordinated early intervening services, because now we're going to have to look at what we can do different within Swartz Creek to help prevent this. There's also an ISD component. Steve Palega, compliance monitor at the ISD, interviewed teams. We had social workers, we had teacher consultants, we had assistant principals. So try to determine why we're over suspending this targeted population. Also attended, again, some different ISD level meetings, along with my special ed directors meetings, to talk about what are some of the ideas and strategies that we could do different to prevent this from happening. So now all this happens, what does it mean to the school district? Ultimately, we have to come up right here, this coordinated early intervening program design. We have to use a chunk of our money that we receive from IDEA, federal government, on services for students that have not been identified with special education to prevent them from coming in. I kind of got an argument with the director from the state and said this doesn't make sense. Special education students and IEPs got suspended. They were the reason why this data, Swartz Creek's data, got us to this. But now the money we have to use is going to be used for general education, preventing students from coming to special ed. She said, yes. And I said, explain why that is. She goes, because the federal government says so. So that was the response I got.
How do you identify those kids?
So those kids were identified. So basically our coordinated early intervening program is going to be working with a targeted group of kids from elementary through all the way up through 10th grade, with our SWIS data, which is our behavior data tracking. Anybody who's hit a targeted number of referrals, we're going to be working with those groups of students, like I said, all from elementary all the way up to the current 10th graders. I have to track the data for 3 years on these kids. So 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and then I have to report back to the state in 3 years, did they qualify for special education? So that's all the feds and the state want, is after 3 years, did they qualify for special education? That's the component there.
All ethnicities?
All, yes. Yep.
What are you basing that on?
That's off of, so what I did was run our SWIS referrals, the students that had the highest.
No, I get that,
Okay.
but then in 3 years, 50% of them now qualify for the special ed. What are you basing that on?
Well, will they?
Because they can't behave?
But it could be behavior, it could be learning, it could be speech and language, it could be.
Okay, but you shouldn't, but if it's speech and language and that, you should identify that when they're in elementary school.
Correct, that's why
Okay,
we're taking
so-
a snapshot from elementary all the way to high school.
In speech and language, it doesn't fall under behavior. So let's go back to what they're telling you to do. They're asking you to look at behavior, so I got Billy and Susie over here with 20 referrals. So they're falling in my category. They've got none of the 13 that you've named. So now you gotta create one?
No,
Cause they can't mind?
I can't create a special education eligibility, but the question or the concern is, what you're expressing is exactly what I asked.
Right, and I'm not
the director
picking
from
on
the state.
you,
So.
but what I'm saying is, what you just said, you had to see if they qualified for special ed.
At the end of the 3 years,
Uh-huh.
the interventions, the coordinated program that we come up with, did it prevent students from becoming eligible for special ed?
And it's irregardless of whether it was behavior related or not.
Whether it's behavior, whether it's
Percent that ended up
academic,
special
whether
ed,
it's.
yes or no, that's all I want.
And that's what that.
Well, if you qualify for them from special ed and they're in 9th grade, that means that K through 8, you drop the ball.
They could move in, we could have dropped the
Well,
ball.
but let's say that they didn't, let's say that they lived in our district.
Ken, I'm agreeing with.
Right, but I'm saying, so now we look like even bigger clowns, because K through 8, we didn't identify a problem. It took us 3 years to research a problem to identify it.
If there are students, yes, I mean, I would have an issue with why we were qualifying a kid just in 9th grade.
Yeah,
I would have
that's
a
my
pro-
point.
So, the plan, maybe this will help, the plan with the coordinated early intervening services is because behavior, PCC 1 through our 5D rubric, which is kind of that consultation, collaboration, working together in our classroom environment and culture. So building off of those and how we can help support teachers and behavior, we're looking at creating an opportunity for the groups of students who have been disciplined and had multiple discipline referrals, social work support. So working together to try to prevent students from meeting that criteria. So we're gonna look at targeting this in the behavior area. I could have taken the coordinated early intervening services and focused it all on academics, taken a small group of academic students. But again, our area of focus is behavior. That's what got us here. That's what we're looking at trying to improve the students and reduce our referral numbers. So.
I would, while you're doing this, obviously this is up to Ben. I have 2 questions about how we suspended these kids. One, were we consistently how we followed the handbook? Whoever did the suspensions, whether it's the principal or assistant principals, did we consistently follow the handbook and how the suspensions are laid out? And 2, because I really don't care what color someone is. If they're gonna come to school and clown, you're eventually gonna have to kick them out. And if it's the same person, I don't care if you kick them out every week. Because every time you don't kick them out, you've got 29 other kids that are suffering in a classroom. So, that's fine. And my last question is, if we don't change any of this, what's gonna happen to us?
Okay, so here you go. I can't answer, I mean, without getting all the data in front of me with the students that were suspended.
Well, but we need to,
A general-
because if we're showing that we're consistently doing something, if we're following our rules, we're following our handbook, our administrators are doing what they're supposed to do, I don't care.
A general, I would say, based off of our interview with Steve Palega and the staff that we interviewed, there was a general theme of students hitting down the office, and they were suspended, students, no matter what student, they were suspended pretty consistently, based off of whatever the offense was. I think what our concern is, identifying through some of this interview process and all the work we've done here, is how those students get to the office. So they're going to the office, I believe, based off of all of our interview, talking with the state, talking with Steve Palega, that's the disproportionate part of how a kid gets to the office. So that's the part that we're gonna look at clarifying and clearing up.
When you're
is-
looking at that number of 41, how many of those were fights? What are we gonna not suspend somebody because it's their
No.
3rd fight? Well, we can't
No.
get him again.
Well, so this is part of our policies and procedures are not gonna change. So if a student is assaulting another student, yeah, they're gonna be removed. That's not what we're talking about. We will, I mean, that's the part that consistently, assistant principals have dealt with. Again, what I think has happened a little bit is, I'll use one example, a student says something or does something, and he gets sent down to the office, where a next student may say something or do something, and may not be sent down to the office, even though it's a comparable. So those are the inconsistencies that we have, as how those students are getting down to the office. Administratively, a kid is getting into a fight, they're pretty much, I mean, every time, they're
So it wasn't the offense, it was the discipline that was applied.
Correct. That's what, yep.
Then that's a problem with your teachers, but let's go back to those 41 on the serious offenses. I'll bet you most of those, I mean, I'd be willing to bet most of those 41 had to do with assaultive behavior or drugs.
Well, 2 to 10 days, so you could have a kid suspended for, I mean.
But now stop right there, don't make it up.
No.
Because I'd like to know what those 41 represent.
Okay.
How many of them were fights? Because if, let's just say
I'll get
31
that.
of them were fights, then this whole conversation's a waste of time.
I can break that down.
Well, I mean, but wouldn't you agree? We
Yeah.
can't change that,
Correct.
okay? Because, I mean, you're gonna have parents in an uproar if Billy don't get something home after getting in a fight for the third time.
If a student commits an offense that's a violation of our policy, they're treated the same way regardless of whether we're in this focus monitoring or not.
See, they gave you a 2 to 10, which is kind of a disproportionate ratio. Let's find out how many of those 41 were fights.
Okay.
Because I'd be willing to bet $20, more than 20 of them are fights.
Mike, I think you had a question.
Pardon?
Did you have a question? Okay, so I have a question.
All right.
You, on the next slide, you mentioned that you had to submit, all of the student documentation.
Correct.
So are they going to look at that and assess it for their perceived fairness?
Correct. So, again, they're looking at all students that are suspended. They're looking at if we are over suspending, and then again, looking at the data that we had submitted, is that, let's just say I'll take 10 or 100 students. If we have 20 black students, we would say, okay, the suspension should be 1/20 or 1/5 of that suspension. The problem that we had was it was more like 40 to 50% of some of our suspension, even though that population, the ethnic population group, did not represent. So most of what we had, there was no doubt there was fights. There was, I know Mr. Simonson was part of some of the data collection or reporting on some of that as the assistant principal when he was in the middle school. Some of it's gonna be fights, some of it's gonna be persistent suspensions from persistent disobedience, or it could be something that a student says. And that's the part that based off of analyzing the data, that's the part that we have inconsistencies.
So the purpose of the coordinated early intervening services is to be more proactive and
Correct.
preventive in the approach?
Correct.
Okay.
Now,
But not
again.
IEP students?
Not with IEP
Not
students.
with IEP students.
That's
Okay.
how the money's doled
I
out
just-
by the feds.
I wish I really could have almost recorded.
He did argue with the state superintendent, I was
Good for
witness
you.
to it.
I mean, and the argument, the response I had was essentially because the federal government tells us what we have to do. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
It just, to me, it sounds like we should do something that we know is best to do irrespective of what they're requiring us to do, right?
Correct. And here's the thing, it's a targeted group of 30 to 40 students they want us to work with. And I even argued that all the research we've done, put Swartz Creek on the map for all of our MTSS work, shows that the biggest bang for your buck is working in changing building-wide, tier 1, district-wide, building-wide expectations and changing that at that level will make the biggest impact to your building. Nope, it's gotta be used for these 30 to 40 students. So, the best way we did this was to create a coordinated early intervening service that could hit a targeted group of many students through social work, which is also a district focus, to help with the behavior, and try to use that as a preventative tool to create as much as we support across all the buildings.
Is there funding in jeopardy if we don't meet their
So-
criteria? Because that's what it's all about
Yes.
usually.
Okay, so I call this being on the naughty list. I call this being on the naughty list. Now, this is the data that we received this year at the end of this last school year, and it was the 16-17 data. So we went through the whole 17-18 school year before we even found out the information from the year before was not good, that we over suspended. So I have all the data from this last year we just had I could be coming to you next year saying the same thing, that we did not make, or we over-suspended a significant amount of students in a certain racial, ethnic background. So, it could be year 2. Now, you get into year 3, you then start talking about potential of losing some of your federal funding. So, if it's not corrected and not taken care of, you really could be looking at losing federal funding.
How much and in what? It's not like they
Well-
cannot give money to special ed children or kids with IEPs.
That's exactly what they did. They took money from the IDEA federal grant that we have, $135,000 for this next year. We have to spend on this focused group of general ed kids, and that's special education IDEA funds that they're taking from the special education kids.
They took the whole 135?
Well, we get $900,000
It's
in IDEA.
15% of the.
They took 135, they allocated, we have to take $135,000 of our IDEA funds, and we have to spend it on what he's talking about now.
Oh, well, I mean, that's,
And then if we get hit again next year, we have to identify a whole new group, continue with the first group for 2 more years, and identify a whole new group, and do it all again for 3 more years.
Can we look at the 17-18 data before
With
they
a
come
bigger
to
shell.
us?
We already have.
Okay.
We
All
already
right.
have. So, in fact, I also used Dave Treader, statistician at the ISD. Dave's crunched some numbers, so I will, the formula is the most convoluted formula of how they do this weighted risk. It's not a simple, here's the number of students divided by this number of students, and here, it's.
right, and I get where they're coming from. Those last 2 columns, you don't need to come back to a board meeting, but send him or email them out to us. I would like to know what every one of those suspensions were for. There's 50 of them. I'd like to know what every one of them were for. And whether they were repeat suspensions where, you know, maybe Billy got a day here and now Billy got 5 or whatever, if they're fights, whatever. I'd like to know what they were for, because as a school district and a school board member, I don't think we can look at the public with a straight face. I don't really care about the federal government enough here. If it's assaultive behavior, theft, drugs, you know, whatever. We can't turn our back on that, and I don't care what color you are. It makes no difference. You know, as I like to say in my job, crime doesn't have a color. Crime is an act. And that act draws a reaction.
So we're saying if we do this, we don't know if that's not gonna impact the 2018, 2019, 20.
I believe yes, by doing this coordinated early intervening services and focusing on behavior, yes, this will help our 18-19 data and help clean up the suspension. So that's the goal, among all the other district focuses that we have. So,
Nothing about 17, 18.
and we hired an additional social worker. So those are the things that we're putting in place to help with this. So.
Are those I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are those unique students in each of those categories?
Yes.
Or could it be Johnny's in number 1 and he could be in number 5 or 4?
Well, I don't know that answer
Okay.
to be clear,
I'm
but
just
I'll
curious.
get that too. I'll
Okay.
get that with. the
As
information.
opposed to it's 58 children, is it, you know, is there
I'll
overlap?
get that answer.
Okay. Thank you.
So ultimately, part of the corrective action plan that I have to do through the state, now here's the other part. The state and federal and the ISD, the monitoring part that we have to come up with. The lady from the state, when she analyzed all the data that I sent her, said, I have never had a district where the discipline matched with what you're sending. It's always off for some reason. So, the amount of when students were suspended and what was in Power School, what was matched their attendance, and the codes that were on there matched. She said she's been doing this and she's never had that happen. So that was an area of, you know, pat on the back for us that we're doing the right thing. So I have to basically come up with a plan to make sure there was one area with one student that I submitted. I could not prove that once that student was suspended over 10 days, that services were offered to him. So I have to, that's the bullet number 1, is make sure that I have the corrective action of making sure I offered services for a student after 10 days of suspension. Student number 2, one student did not have a manifestation to determine if the disability was related to the suspension and removal. Because we declared it not a pattern of removal, we felt we didn't have to do that. The state disagreed with us. So I have to go back and hold a manifestation for a student based off of 16-17 data to clear that correction up.
What would happen if that student had graduated? Because that could happen, correct?
That's where you could face some student level corrective action or look at some compensatory education. So then we've created a coordinated early intervening plan, which I talked a little bit about, with social work support, some of the trauma training that we have going on, that will be part of that. And then I'm obligated to publicly report this to the board.
We don't have to wait 9 months though for a school year before we determine if that's working, right? We don't have to wait until end of year to make sure the program is working.
Correct.
Working.
So I can start taking data now on the 34 students I think we have, to be precise, students of whether or not they're going to be reduced referrals or not. But the thing that I will tell you is I think there's going to be multiple factors that will help with our suspension and behavior data this year. The addition of the staff, social worker, the addition of a focus actually on behavior, the trauma-informed training. We have 27 staff members trained on trauma-informed that will be trained the trainers. Part of that $135,000 paid for that trainer. They're finishing the last 2 days of that tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. So you're gonna see also with our CEC focus on culture, classroom environment, you're gonna really talk about creating a relationship with students. I think I freaked out Melissa, Tony, when I told them that, you know, we're looking at how we can come up with alternatives to suspension. But again, if somebody's doing something, we're not changing our policies on how a student is removed. We're going to still hold firm. We're talking about being a warm demander, so it's an issue of building that relationship, but then also having those high expectations. And when students are doing things that are crime, breaking the law, I mean, we're removing them.
Maybe with your new school resource officer, they can start doing more warrants and petitions in court, and we can approach some of the behavior from a criminal standpoint as well as here, because that would suit me just fine. It'd take a little extra work on your school resource officer's part, but maybe and I don't know if you guys, I don't know if we do anything like this, so if I'm reinventing the wheel, stop me. But when I was in high school, we used to have this setup of where they would close your classes until mommy or daddy come up and met with you and the assistant principal. You weren't kicked out, but you couldn't come back to school until mom or dad came to school. Got my classes closed twice. I was familiar with, never got kicked out, but I did have that happen twice. But what it did was, it inconvenienced the parent. And that in and of itself, because then when I went home, mom wasn't happy she missed work, and I paid for it at home.
We're trying to take a more proactive approach with what a little spin on that is some of our restorative practices. So if a student is removed from the class, how are they reintegrated into the class? How are they coming back into the school? I would also, my concern with that is if I keep Rod out because he needs to have a parent come meet with me, and then his parents can't meet for 2, 3, 4 more days, and if I'm denying his right to special education, that's more suspension days.
Send it home. Send the paperwork home and call CPS, because then the parent's not being a parent. That kid's not coming to school because they can't come to school. They're not coming to school because mom or dad hasn't brought them back up. They're, again.
So we're saying the same thing, I'm just saying.
Well,
through
no, because
restorative-
you're not inconveniencing the parent. Inconvenience the parent.
But as a restorative, part of the restorative practice would be bringing that parent in to talk, so.
At their convenience, make them
No,
inconvenient.
it would be, we're looking at the day of removal or the next day.
Okay.
Depending on if it's, I mean, obviously if it's a long-term suspension, we're not bringing it.
You start inconveniencing mom and dad quite often, that problem's gonna get solved at home. Cause right now, mom and dad's getting a phone call, Billy, don't do that anymore. You start dragging them out of work, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything else, but I mean, it corrected some problems at my house, so, or my mom did actually, so.
All right.
I mean, I don't know, you don't have to do any of it, I don't care, but you
Right.
start inconveniencing the parents.
Brian, you have a question?
So is there an extra cost for the district for all these extra resources, staffing, all the data collection, all the analyzing the data, everything that goes on? And if there is an additional cost, is the federal government covering, assisting us with that additional
Well,
cost?
the federal government is just telling us how to spend our money, so we have to spend our money a certain way. So we already were looking at 4 social workers, so now I'm just shifting resources a little bit to pay for that. So what I'm worried about is if we are on this list for another 2 years, then it would have an impact on the district. So right now, it's kind of shifting money around, but it does limit us on how we can pay for special education. And there are money that would typically be set up for special ed, now has to be used for general ed. So.
Or what used to be funded with IDEA will now have to be funded with general ed.
Yeah.
It won't be grant funded, it'll have to come out of the general ed funds. Cause we can't reduce what we are providing our special education population
Okay.
either.
I get it.
So IDEA now is gonna have to be spent on that $135,000 is gonna have to be
Right,
spent
the
on general
50%.
fund kids, which reduces what we have out of IDEA, but we can't eliminate any services that we previously funded out of IDA. So now that $135,000 is gonna have to be funded out of general fund.
But again.
Just leave it there.
So I'm used to this in healthcare where you get graded on what happened 2 or 3 years ago. It's just how it happens, and they make those decisions now that they're going to change how you were graded 2 or 3 years ago. But did we have any indication whatsoever that this program, or that they were going to start doing this monitoring 2 or 3 years ago? So that districts could actually have a heads up, or was this just basically, based on the information we have right now, we're gonna look back 2 years and that's how you'll be graded?
We're literally talking, if analyzing the data correctly, see that number 9 right there? If that was 2 less students, I wouldn't be here. I mean, so we just met this threshold. Years before, we've not come close. So for whatever reason, again, looking at some of the student data, we had just a couple students that had some significant issues. And again, you get that into a few of them being over on that far right, that the weighted risk goes up higher, and too many there, it will carry you over, and we just had the perfect storm. So now our data for this year the year we just finished is looking very comparable to what we had in 16-17. So I'm trying to make sure Dave Treader at the ISD finds maybe a way to make sure I'm not here again.
So are 1-day suspensions the way to go?
Well, that's certainly an option. But multiple 1 days are gonna get you there. Once you get from the 2 to 10, but they even hit you now for in-school suspension, where a few years ago that didn't count. So they're basically indicating that, hey, we have to come up with other ways. We have them for a short period of time. We have to educate, not only educate, but also teach a lot of disciplinary actions and what goes on. So there's a lot of things that are looking into this, and we really need to look at creating that pipeline to prison article that was out a few years ago. How do we stop that? How do we, as an education system, Swartz Creek schools, really, we teach kids to read and write, we gotta teach them how to behave, so.
Seems like that'd be parents' jobs.
We do that too.
Any other questions for Derek? Derek, I appreciate you being here and all the
Thank you.
efforts.
Thanks,
that
Derek. I
you're
wasn't picking on you.
Undergoing. Appreciate it very much.
Never take it that way, okay?
Good.
Okay. Now we're going on to Neola. This is our second reading of the social media policy.
Yeah, I just would give you a couple things to consider as you look at the policies. Number one, there's a Varnum article. These would have been passed out a few board meetings ago. If you don't have them with you, Joanne might have another extra copy. But if you wanna just take a couple notes on a couple of these things, there is a notice from Varnum, which is the legal counsel for Neola. And this past year, we dealt with a lot of issues with free speech, student free speech, whether it was the national anthem issues that we've had, the walkouts from the Parkland, Florida shooting situation. I think that, I'm proud of our staff. I think we did a pretty good job handling those things, but those nonetheless have been big issues. And so one of the things that we as a district need to always be thinking about is that we are not infringing on a student's right to their free speech. And some of the policies that you're gonna see in here also deal with the free speech of the public in using our domain. So an example of that would be policy 7544. One of the things that we had to make a decision on is whether we're gonna use our social media sites for interaction in terms of welcoming and inviting public comments into those. Obviously, we are bound by the law, and we are welcoming and should invite public comment at board meetings. There's a public forum for that. But when you get into social media, for example, and you get into having everybody make comments on those things, you do run the risk, if you're going to pick and choose what things are there or not there, violating people's free speech. So one of the policies in there basically just says the district will use social media platforms as interactive forms of communication, meaning you'll get stuff out there, but it's not gonna be used to have dialogue and conversations like your typical social media site. That's gonna be my recommendation. So that's gonna be page policy 7544. Another thing that is gonna be in here is whether or not the district allows students to use social media for instructional and school-sponsored activities. That's something that we do a lot of. One of the options on page 3 of 8 from 7544, it provides kind of a nice balance between saying no social media and carte blanche, no checks and balances. Option 3 on that page really allows students to use and staff members to use school-sponsored devices or social media for instructional purposes, and especially during breaks and things like that, but not, not during class time for, say, I'm gonna sell my dresser or whatever, and I'm doing that during my
Using our
instructional
stuff
time.
or their own?
Using our stuff. So that's gonna be something to kind of think about. The other one that I wanted to let you know about was policy 4162. This is just a shift in how we do business. For anyone that has a CMV license, a commercial motor vehicle license that has the ability to drive, they have been subject to drug screening and tests for drinking and those types of things. They've been subject to that for a while. That law has shifted, so the policy needs to shift to anyone performing safety checks. So if you're not just driving a vehicle, but if you're gonna be the guy that checks the fluid in the vehicle, you also need to have those checks. So I think that's a good thing, but it is nonetheless something that we'll have to consider in the policy. There's a number of other things that relate to social media. Many of them are just simple name changes of the way that we're, for example, we don't have MySpace anymore, but we have Instagram, Twitter, all of the updated social media sites. There's a lot of that kind of content in here as well. So, if you have any questions on them, we did talk about them in policy, but we'll talk about them again. If you need anything or have questions on them or concerns, let me know. And then at our next meeting, we'll do a final read and then adopt.
Yeah,
Yes.
Were you gonna talk about compensation?
Yes. Oh, great. Thank you for bringing that up. One of the policies in here deals with board compensation. And since we're talking about board compensation, one thing that I am suggesting, we do, they're probably around here somewhere, the little yellow and blue sheets at every committee meeting, every meeting that you go to. And what we had talked about was simply making it an easier, there's a lot of paperwork, and then we're cutting all these checks, and so there's just a lot of oversight of that. What I would suggest that you do, like a lot of boards that I've worked with in the past, if, let's say the average board member is making $1,500 a year, which you can't quit your day job to be a board member, by the way. What I'd like to see is just make that a one-time, maybe in December you get a check for your board work. It's a one check, and the stipulation on that would basically say you need to attend, 75% or more of the special and regular board meetings to obtain your stipend. And what it would do is it would just make it easier. You don't have to sign the forms every time. You don't have to cut a bunch of checks. And we wouldn't implement this until next year if everybody would be agreeable. It's not gonna be a raise or a big increase or anything. It's just gonna be, instead of cutting you a bunch of checks for $25 or $30 at a time, we're just gonna put it into one check.
I think that's a good idea, because I think you need to separate the two. Because for instance, I go to no committee meetings.
That's what I'm talking, committee meetings.
But you were talking about
Yeah, just regular
Just regular
special board.
special.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said committee.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh, so just board meetings?
Just
Oh,
board.
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you come to 75% of the special or regular meetings, and then I think if you volunteer to chair or serve on a committee meeting, that would count as one of your obligations. But if you're not on a committee,
Right.
that shouldn't count against your
Okay.
75%.
Well, that sounds like
So,
a great idea.
I think it'll make it easier for everybody, and
Save some money too with cutting
Good.
checks and writing checks.
yeah, it will. So it'll save an operational cost. So just, that's just a slight policy change. I'll have something drafted. We talked about it the other day. And so I'd like to do that for next year. So just consider that, think about that.
Be good Christmas money.
Yeah.
Do you even need paper checks at all?
What'd you say?
Do we need paper checks at all?
You probably wouldn't, but, if it's just one paper check, it's not a big deal to cut that,
I've often wondered why we didn't do direct deposit.
We could absolutely
I mean,
do that too. Christie's over there, she'll say.
I mean,
yeah.
seriously, don't everyone else in the district have?
We do for payroll, but,
Correct.
For accounts payable, it is possible, but they don't do it yet.
Well, for payroll though.
Oh, we're
Yeah,
100%
so why
direct-
not?
We're 100% direct deposit.
Yeah, so I mean, why not us as well?
Yeah, accounts payable, it has to be paid through accounts payable, because you're not an employee of the district, but accounts payable, we could look into that, it is possible to do it that way.
So here's what we wrote down in our policy meeting, just so you can hear the language. Effective January 1st, 2019, an annual stipend of $1,500 will be paid on the first pay in December of each calendar year. In order to receive the board stipend, board members must attend 75% of the regular and special board meetings in that calendar year.
That's
It would replace the $30 per meeting and
25.
$25 per meeting. So-
Which would actually be, since I'm leaving, which would actually be a nice pay raise though, because right now you're really only looking at $100 to $75 a month. So,
Yeah, we did, if you
Who's
did
counting?
the $30 to $25 per meeting, if you had 52 meetings, that would be your, be getting you close there, so.
I'll stay out of that topic, I'm not gonna be here.
I have a question on the controlled substance and alcohol policy.
Yep.
So this is where somebody could be subject to a random test, correct?
Yep, we maintain a list of people who can operate any of our vehicles.
Mhm.
And that list is now going to include people that can operate those vehicles and also work on them. And anyone that's on that list, it could be somebody that even drives a van for a cross-country team. They're subject to those random screens, and they're called that day, and they need to show up, and they do that. And that's part of the law, and that's just to make sure that anyone that would be operating a vehicle would be safe. So the big change there is just anyone working on those vehicles would be added.
So let's just say somebody has a procedure done and they're given a controlled substance for pain, or they have a dental procedure and they get Xanax to relax them. It's incumbent on them to share that information before they do any further work on those
Yes.
vehicles and or drive, correct?
Correct.
And that's not reflected in the policies, but is that part of the human resource policies that we have? Or guidelines?
I would wanna check that before I made an answer,
Okay.
but I would say that's our, that's the way we operate?
We talked.
We talked about this a
at
couple years
length,
ago.
yeah, about bus drivers, because that went round and round because of
Right.
HIPAA and everything else.
Right.
And,
But if the person's aware that they could be ingesting something that could cause them an issue,
Right.
and you don't, that day you're assigned to work on buses, you say, I can't do it today because I had to take a medication.
well, if you even remember, we went as far as that, let's say that when they got out of bed, they didn't take Vicodin. So technically, it wasn't affecting them all day while they performed their job, but when they went home at 5 o'clock,
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm in pain, take a Vicodin, take another one before you go to bed. So they're gonna test positive, but in good conscience, they never took it while they were operating the vehicle. Hey, cause that was, I mean, we
talked
hashed
about
that
this,
around forever.
And I think they even went back to Neola and asked the question.
Yeah.
But in this day and age,
Well, I mean, that,
I think it, either there has to be, in my opinion only, there needs to be clear-cut guidelines for the employee.
Agreed.
If you think that they could put you at risk for the children that you drive, the bus that you're working on, or your job, then you need to come forward and say that this is the situation. You don't have to disclose it to us. I'm not,
Right.
I don't need to
Doesn't
know
matter
that.
what it is, but you need to let us know.
Right, but let us know, because then you don't work on those vehicles, or you don't drive today. I think that brought up that
yeah,
conversation.
cause we went around,
And
I mean.
I think it kind of died.
Yep.
But now it's coming up again.
Yes, yeah, that's good.
Well, and it's coming up with a different group of people, so
Right.
now it just expanded
Just something
everything.
to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't think we ever come to a solution or resolution on it, because I think you'd have to
And
have,
that's reality. It does
yeah, they'd have to
happen.
be on the honor system to do it, because you can't.
And they'd have to know about it, they have to be informed, like, this is your
Right.
expectation.
Exactly.
And, because then when you do test positive, even if the good doctors wrote you that prescription, but I think you'd have to be able to articulate it, that it was affecting them while they were, I give you an example, we had a young man who had his wisdom teeth pulled. And he got up in the middle of the night in pain, like at 4 in the morning, and he took a Vicodin. And when he came to give his senior exit, presentation, he's all swollen and bruised, and he was like swaying. And, he'd taken, that was still affecting him, and so we got a hold of mom and dad, and we took him home. And, but he had got on a cycle where he wasn't taking them in the morning and trying to make it through school. And he messed that one up. But, he was cool about it, he didn't drive home or nothing, we ran him home and everything was good, but he was up there swaying while he was talking.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That's good.
there would be, you don't want your bus driver swinging while they're driving the
That's true,
bus.
that's true.
But if they take it home on their own time, good for them.
Any other questions for Ben?
Seems like we'd even want that with teachers. I mean, you wouldn't want the teacher up there swaying on the chalkboard.
No, it's good, it's definitely a
I
good
mean,
conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Add that.
So we'll look forward to our next reading, which should be our final, correct?
Yep.
Okay, board action items. We have SEEA employment.
We are excited to have several teachers to bring to you today. I'm gonna ask Mr. Claren to come up first, he'll be up first. And he's gonna talk to us a little bit about one of his ELA teachers that he's gonna present to us.
I appreciate the previous appointments because I missed the July meeting, but come on up, Kelly. Our first recommendation is Kelly Robertson. The nice thing about both our candidates tonight is they're both hired guns because they both have experience and they both have advanced degrees. And we really want them both. Kelly is one of those teachers at Holly Academy where she's taught these past 9 years. I believe this was going to be year number 10. But she's one of those teachers that the parents all request for their kids and things. And so she's got a lot of passion. She's got a lot of zeal for teaching of reading. So we're looking forward to her helping us institute Readers Workshop where kids are able to go off on their own paths of reading. And that'll help us again with our Dragon Hour because she'll be able to help us differentiate with that. She's got extensive experience as well with various MTSS functions, trying to come up with good interventions for behavior issues. So Mr. Bouchon, going on deaf ears. And also those academic interventions. I present to you Kelly Robertson, and we can prove her to you.
I thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm super excited to come. I do have lots of knowledge. I was the chairperson for PBIS for many years as well. I reading chair, all these different chairing committees, PLC leader. Holly Academy was really sad that I left. I had students and parents say, I requested you for this year. I'm like, I'm sorry, I really did want to teach them, but I'm looking forward to this opportunity. This is such a much bigger district than Holly Academy. Holly Academy has only like 600 from young 5s to 8th grade. So I'm really excited to be in a bigger district and to see the pond that I'm in, that I'm sure I'll still be a big fish one day. So thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mike,
Support.
Brian? Okay. Be it resolved, the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approved the employment of Kelly Robertson as an ELA teacher at the middle school as presented. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, go.
Our next candidate is Joe Bernardi. So Joe, if you could come on up. Joe's one of those folks that knew they wanted to be a teacher, but had other things called family business, and so he tried to follow into that and decided, no, my heart is in education. I need to teach. I was meant to teach. And so Joe went back and got an advanced degree. Joe's been working at Jalen Rose Leadership Academy in Detroit these past 3 years. It was very intriguing for us there. The committee was the extensive work he did. He worked with high school students, 10th grade and 12th grade. Did a tremendous amount of work tracking these students, conferring with them, setting goals, making sure they're on track for graduation. And then, of course, collaborating with his staff, the other teachers in professional learning communities. So we're really looking forward to having Joe bring those experiences and help us expand that with our 8th grade students. He's going to be doing 8th grade social studies, but he can teach multiple classes. He has health PE endorsement and social studies and ELA. So we're really excited about bringing somebody with so many talents and endorsements. So,
And he's been an excavator.
And pardon that?
And he's been an excavator,
So he's governor, we can drive the plow?
I didn't want to bring that up because I know RC has a lot of projects, and we might just give him a hard hat.
Right, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very, very excited to be starting this year. Looking forward greatly to getting to know the students at Swartz Creek and building relationships with them as this year progresses. So looking forward to a great year. And again, I just thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Support.
Tony?
Support.
Mike? Okay. Be resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the employment of Joe Bernardi as a social studies teacher at the middle school as presented. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Congrats.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome, Joe. Yep, we're moving into the second one. B.
Hello, I would like, good evening, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Sarah LaFang. She comes to us with 21 years of teaching art, K-12. So I checked with all of her references, they spoke so highly of her work ethic, her ability to be really positive, kids love her, we're excited. I'm excited about the 21 years experience. She's excited, she has connections in our district and heard about the things that we're doing, want to be part of it. And so we respect that. She has a husband and 5 daughters. So I give you Miss Sarah, and if you would like to say something.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And like Jim said, I did my student teaching here back in 1994 with Mrs. Laka, so it's nice to be back in my old stomping grounds. I've had a lot of family come through these doors, so it's kind of nice to return to where I started.
Where have you been?
I've been in KPAC schools. Yeah. So,
Okay.
any questions?
I need a motion.
So moved.
Brian?
Support.
Ken? Okay. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the employment of Sarah LaThang as an art teacher at the high school? As presented. Any comments or questions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Congratulations to all of our new teachers.
Yes.
And we have another one.
Yes, so last time we had the opportunity to hire another teacher from Elms Road Elementary School, but she couldn't be with us, and so I asked Dave to come today. She's here as well, so Shannon's here with us. So if you want to introduce her and.
Sure. So this is Shannon Fournier. We hired her back at the end of June. I'm glad you were able to confirm her in July. It helped ease her tension about leaving another job. So anyway, she comes to us from Grand Blanc Academy, and we have a couple other teachers from Grand Blanc Academy over at Elms Road. We've been blessed with the people that have come out of there, but she came very highly recommended from the connections over there. As well as, she rose to the top in the interviews that we had with her. She was my first choice, and other Elms Road member of our hiring committee. Both of us said both interviews that she did. She just rose right to the top, #1 for us. So we're really glad that she's able to come over, and glad you're able to approve her.
How many candidates did you have apply for that position?
We had over 100. We had 106 in Applitrack, and then we had about 8 or 9 more that came in at the end there, and so it was quite a group to kind of try and whittle down and make sure we had the best. But she speaks our language, which is nice. She came in and just started talking about all of her data and all the things she does with kids, and it's exactly what we're looking for. So.
And you'll be teaching sweet little first graders.
I will.
Oh, bless you.
Well, I didn't know there was 106 candidates. That's crazy. I just would like to thank all of you so much. I'm so excited for this experience. All of the people that I'm working with at Elms have opened me with open arms. I've been talking to my first grade teaching partners nonstop this whole summer, what we're doing with the curriculum and everything like that. So I just really appreciate this, and I'm very excited, and I look forward to it.
It's nice to meet you, Shannon.
Nice to meet you. Congrats and thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
That was nice of you to come in. I know, we didn't leave her into spare. That's good.
Okay, so now we've reached the part of our meeting where we can welcome comments from the public. If you'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Miss Alicia.
I'm Alicia Gardner. I actually was a little bit intrigued. I may not have been out enough to go to the movies recently, but I actually saw a commercial, I don't know what else to call it, for Swartz Creek Schools while I was at the movie theater with my mom. That was the first I've seen it, so really this is a question. Is this part of some marketing campaign, and if so, why? Was my very first question. Honestly, I'll tell you, I was there with my mother, who leaned over and said, "Are you guys hurting that bad that you have to advertise?" So that just posed a question for myself that I wanted to pose here. And then I ask if there's any market analysis that's been done. If that is a marketing campaign, why the movie theater? Because I also noticed in this commercial, albeit that it's nice, it doesn't really highlight a lot of the great things I think we have in our district. It just basically says, come to Swartz Creek. And I would like to just say, if there's an opportunity change that or update it, there's some great things in our new virtual learning academy, our Little Dragons, Learning Center. There's a lot of things that just aren't highlighted, so that was a lot of questions in one comment, but I'd like to know what.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. We do have a marketing budget. We put so typically we've done several things. Some are news, some are print. Sometimes we put ads in different local papers. So this year we thought, it's been about 5 years since we've done one of those kind of commercials, just, you know, a promo commercial. In terms of the market analysis, that's something that we actually just started talking about. There's a company that in Genesee County will pull in, for example, ABC 12 and the Fox News Channel and those others that are local news outlets. And so we're trying to ask the question, you know, we don't spend a lot of money on this, but it's a small pot of money that we decided, let's try this commercial this year versus putting stuff in print. It's something that, would I say we're hurting? No, we're not hurting. But every district in Genesee County is doing some form of marketing themselves in some form or fashion. We elect not to put big old billboards on 69 and that type of thing, so this is our kind of way of doing that. You have a lot of families that go to the movie theater, and we elected not to do the Rave Theater. We elected to do the Trillium when we found out that that's where the majority of our families go. So just a way to kind of positively, we tried to get as many snapshots of you know, classrooms, you know, we got into the STEM lab, we got into some of the athletic fields, we tried to get some music classes into the choir, and so we tried to show a variety of different things, as much as you can show in 30 seconds. And so, but I no doubt that it probably could be enhanced, and I think something that we would come back to looking at. But yeah, we will continue to do some form of marketing, you know, in some form or fashion, just because, you know, we want people to know that we're here and we're doing some incredible things, and you know, we have a lot to be proud of. So some of it's promotional, just to say, be proud that your kids come here. We do have a lot of great things to offer. And when you see the Grand Blanc commercial, or when you see the Flushing commercial, they're not the only ones that are doing these great things as well. So there is an element to that, I think, in our culture now in schools, that you do have to kind of get some things out there and communicate that you have some of these things. So definitely something we could get better at. We don't allocate a huge chunk of money to that, so that would be a definite conversation moving forward, is, you know, if we wanted to increase that and maybe get more sophisticated even in that area. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just as a side note, is that something we can put on YouTube, or
Yes.
have we done that?
We have not pushed it out on YouTube, but we can. We can put it on the Facebook page. Yep.
Anyone else? Good.
We'll wish more on that one, because people can comment.
Yes, that's true.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's true too.
we are at the comments and questions for the board. Anybody?
I would, Stacy, again, I'm gonna hit you again. Good luck, and very true words. You've done a marvelous job, marvelous job. I'd like to thank the entire board for having me in the secretary position to finish my time out on the school board. I appreciate it. It's very kind of each of you, and I'll leave it at that.
Well deserved.
Anyone else? I want to congratulate our new teachers, Kelly, Shannon, Sarah, and Joe. We look forward to working with you. It's been our experience that you will grow and you will fly, maybe with a little nudging here and there, because we do hear people coming back with new opportunities. So that's really exciting. We're very happy that you chose Swartz Creek. You won't be disappointed at all. Thank you to all of the administrators for your time as well, because I know that's a lot of folks to look through and to get down to the best and the brightest. So thank you for that. Stacy, thank you. Don't know what else to say. Just thank you.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Bittersweet.
So I'm going to read something. I'm not resigning, but all right. So occasionally I do get mail from the district or on the district's behalf. At the end of probably the beginning of July, and I wasn't here at the July meeting, I received a letter from the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators, and it says, the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators, MASA, is pleased to announce that Ben Meinke has successfully completed Sustain Excellence, a central office enhancement program offered through MASA's Horizon Leadership Academy that is approved by the Michigan Department of Education. This 60-hour program, that's a lot, was spread out over 1 year period and focused on strengthening influential leadership skills and strategies to include. Editorial comment, I think Ben could teach the classes. Personality preferences, how do I lead, situational leadership, values and beliefs and their leadership impact, emotional intelligence, mentor coaching, fact-finding, and ed talks. MASA has submitted a recommendation to the Michigan Department of Education for issuance of a central office specialty enhancement to be placed on Ben's K-12 Administrator Certificate. The MASA team thanks you for your support of Ben's participation in this program, and I want to thank Ben because that's a lot of time. As a father of 4 children and somebody who is in this district all the time, and I speak to you all days, all hours, any day, holidays and everything. This is amazing that you were able to do this, so congratulations. All right, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Congrats, man. Thanks. Do something else in your free time.